If you stepped outside right now, in this exact spot, with wet hair, it would freeze solid within seconds, then snap off, like glass. Somewhere on Earth, that's not a hypothetical. That's just Tuesday. There's a town where the coldest temperature ever recorded was colder than the average day on Mars. Where cars are never switched off, because if the engine dies, it might never start again. Where the ground is too frozen to bury the dead without fire. Where kids walk to school in cold that would kill an unprepared adult in minutes. Welcome to Oymyakon, Siberia, the coldest permanently inhabited settlement on Earth. "500 people live here, not scientists, not researchers passing through, teachers, hunters, shopkeepers, people who wake up every morning to a landscape that's actively trying to kill them, and have built an entire life on top of it anyway." And by the end of this video, you're going to understand something stranger than the cold itself. The one season that should make life here easier is actually the most unsettling part of the whole story. Keep that in the back of your mind. Here's how they actually do it. Start with the numbers, because you need them to understand everything else. The average winter temperature in Oymyakon sits around -50 degrees Celsius. That's -58 Fahrenheit. On February 6, 1933, a weather station here recorded -67.7 degrees Celsius, -90 Fahrenheit. It's among the coldest temperatures ever officially measured at an inhabited location outside Antarctica, a record Oymyakon still disputes, town to town, with a rival village less than 50 miles away. At that temperature, steel turns brittle and shatters like ceramic. Glasses can crack against your face from the temperature gap between your skin and the air. Ink freezes in the pen. Batteries die within minutes. Bare metal will tear skin away on contact. And 500 people call this home. There's one season here that should offer some relief from all of this. I told you to remember it. What actually happens is the strangest part of this entire story, and we're building to it. In Oymyakon, cold isn't weather. It's architecture. It's infrastructure. It's law. Rule 1. Your car never turns off. Ever. Shut off the engine and the oil gels into a thick paste. The battery drains completely. Metal components contract and seize. In extreme cases, the chassis can actually crack from the thermal stress. So cars idle around the clock, outside schools, outside the one village store, their exhaust the only visible sign that anything's alive in a frozen landscape. Rule 2. You don't wear metal. Glasses are a gamble. At -50, the frames can freeze to your temples and cheeks, and taking them off can take skin with them. Contact lenses are worse. They can freeze directly to the eye. Even a wedding ring turns dangerous. Sweat or snowmelt against metal. That cold can cut off circulation in your finger. Rule 3. You don't go outside alone. Not because of wolves, not crime, because if you slip on ice, if a zipper jams, you've got maybe 3 to 5 minutes before your extremities start freezing solid. And in a village, where everyone knows everyone, that's still not the same as someone actually finding you in time. Three rules, and none of them are the hardest part of living here. That's still coming. So what does an ordinary day look like when the air itself is working against you? School starts at 9, and here's the detail that breaks most outsiders' brains. School doesn't close for snow, doesn't close for ice, doesn't close for blizzards. Local reporting puts the closure threshold somewhere around -52 degrees Celsius. Even that number moves, depending on who you ask. -51, kids walk. -50, they walk, bundled in reindeer fur and wool, scarves wrapped tight enough that only their eyes show, into a wooden schoolhouse, heated by a coal furnace that never stops running. Triple-paned windows still frost over on the inside. The village has exactly one store. It sells basic supplies, frozen fish, reindeer meat, and a lot of vodka. Not really for parties. Alcohol lowers the freezing point of blood and gives a brief, real sensation of warmth. Here, it functions as much like medicine as it does like a drink. There's no running water in the way you'd expect. Pipes would freeze and burst instantly. Water gets delivered by truck, or drawn from a community well that has to be kept heated around the clock, just to stop it sealing shut with ice. For a lot of homes, using the bathroom means walking outside to an outhouse, in -50, at 3 in the morning. Sit with that for a second. A wooden shack 40 feet from your front door. A hole cut into a frozen plank. Wood, because plastic would shatter. You're holding a flashlight, your breath fogging so thick you can barely see your own hands, and you've got maybe 90 seconds before the cold starts burning through your skin. Every single day. That's not a bad week in Oymyakon. That's Tuesday. And surviving the routine is one thing, but what happens when someone here dies? That's where this story stops being about discomfort and starts being about something almost impossible. The ground here is permafrost, frozen solid, hundreds of feet deep, and that creates a problem most places on Earth never have to think about. Not with shovels, not with picks, not with machinery. The ground is essentially concrete, made of ice and stone. To bury someone in Oymyakon, families have to build a bonfire directly over the frozen earth. They burn wood for hours to thaw the top layer, scrape away a few inches of mud, and then light another fire. It can take up to 3 days of continuous burning just to dig a single grave. In a place where the cold preserves almost everything, meat, wood, even memory, it refuses, stubbornly, to give up the earth. Hold on to that detail. It matters again later, in a way you will not see coming. Uncovering the places where human life pushes past its absolute limits is why we built hidden terrains. If you're drawn to these corners of the world, subscribe to join us for each investigation. Because to understand why anyone would build a permanent settlement on ground this hostile in the first place, you have to go back to the road that put it there, and it's darker than the cold. There's a highway in Siberia that locals still call the Road of Bones, and Oymyakon exists, in large part, because of it. In the 1930s, Stalin needed a supply route across the Siberian interior, so he ordered the Kolyma highway built, 1,000 miles of road cut through forest and permafrost, largely by Gulag prisoners working with hand tools in these exact temperatures. Estimates of the death toll vary enormously, depending on the historian, from the tens of thousands into the hundreds of thousands. No one has an exact number, and that's its own kind of horror. Most who died were buried where they fell, right along the route they were forced to build. The legend that's followed the road for decades is even darker. That some bodies weren't just buried nearby, but became part of the roadbed itself. Historians can't confirm that specific detail. There's no archaeological evidence for it. But the legend has survived this long for a reason. It captures exactly what that system was. Prisoners weren't treated as people. They were treated as material. Oymyakon was built as a staging post along that road. Fuel and supplies for the trucks moving through. When the road was finished and the camps emptied out, some workers simply stayed. Because in that system, staying was often easier than leaving. A labor outpost slowly turned into a village. The village became a town. The town became, for 500 people, home. The people living here today aren't prisoners, but they're living on top of what may be a 1,000-mile graveyard, whether they think about it or not. So who chooses to build a life on top of that? The answer says more about human resilience than the temperature ever will. Many residents are ethnic Yakuts, indigenous Siberians, whose ancestors have survived cold like this for centuries. Reindeer herders, horse breeders, hunters. For a lot of families here, hunting isn't a hobby. It's how you eat. When the nearest real grocery store is a 4-hour drive down the road of bones, assuming the road is even open that week. Some live entirely off-grid, miles outside the village. Cabins with no running water, no power line, nothing but a small diesel generator that has to be maintained like it's keeping someone alive. Because in January, it is. Meat gets stored in a shed out back. Nature does the refrigeration at -50 year-round. No electricity required. Ask people why they stay, and the answers sound almost backwards if you've never felt cold like this. They'll tell you it keeps them healthy. Bacteria struggle to survive these temperatures, so illness is rare, and some say the air is clean enough to heal the lungs. There's essentially no crime, because committing one requires going outside, and going outside for long stretches can genuinely kill you. Some keep it simpler. This is where their grandparents lived, where they were born. When the cold is the only world you've ever known, it stops being an enemy and just becomes the weather. But there's a quieter reason nobody says out loud right away. Leaving is genuinely expensive. Relocating to a city takes money most families don't have, and selling a house here is close to impossible. Who's buying property in the coldest inhabited place on Earth? So people stay. Not always because they want to, sometimes because the cold has closed the door on the way out, the same way it seals the ground over the dead. Which brings us back to the one thing I told you to remember at the start of this video. The season that's supposed to be a relief. Here's why it isn't. For a handful of weeks in July and August, the temperature climbs above freezing. Snow melts. The river, solid ice for 8 straight months, starts moving again. For a few weeks, the landscape turns into something that almost looks gentle. Green tundra, wildflowers, meltwater cutting through open plains. But summer is also when the dead come back. As the permafrost thaws, bodies that have stayed frozen for decades, gulag prisoners, early settlers, people lost to the wilderness, occasionally surface. Bones work their way up through the mud. The ground gives up what it's been holding. Remember the burial problem. 3 days of fire just to open the ground? Summer undoes it for free, without being asked, without a fire. The frozen earth that refuses to take the dead in winter hands them back on its own schedule in July. And then, right on schedule, winter comes back. The earth freezes solid again. The bones disappear. The cycle starts over. Oymyakon isn't a place you visit so much as a place you survive. 500 people wake up every morning inside a landscape that seems built to erase them, starting cars that can never be allowed to die, sending kids to school in air that could kill an outsider in minutes, burying their dead with fire because the ground won't take them any other way, and they call it home. We tend to treat extreme cold as an absolute boundary, an obstacle to be avoided. Oymyakon proves that where human resilience is concerned, even frozen earth can become a foundation. Home was never really about the temperature. It's about choice. And sometimes, it's the only choice you're given. Next week, we're leaving the cold behind for something almost the opposite. A city where the snow that falls is black, the air itself is dangerous to breathe, and outsiders are barred from entering at all. If Oymyakon is a place that survives the cold, next week is a place that might not survive itself. Subscribe to Hidden Terrains so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.